aloha, welcome back to my channel. For those of you visiting for the first time, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I do hope you subscribe and come and check me out every week as I try to post a new video weekly. Now, before we dive right into today's case, I do have a disclaimer, guys. We are going to be talking about a young child and we are going to be talking about SA. So for those of you that are very sensitive to this, I suggest that perhaps you click out of this video and then come back and check me out next week when I post a new video. So let's just jump right into the case. Today we're talking about George and Tumata TADEO. George and Tumata TADEO lived in the Hawaiian Beaches subdivision in Puna on the Big Island, just south of Hilo, with their 3 children. In 2001, they had a 6-year-old little girl and 2 boys, ages 2 and 5. Now, George himself, he grew up, he was raised and pretty much lived in the Hawaiian Beaches subdivision his entire life. And he described the neighborhood as, someplace safe. Everybody knew everybody. The neighbors were friendly. The kids, the neighborhood kids would all go outside and play in the yard, ride their bikes in the streets. Everybody watched everybody. Just one of those places that was great to raise a family. And so this is exactly why George and his wife wanted to raise their 3 children here. The family lived on a quiet loop just off of the main street. Sorry guys, I gotta say, I'm so sorry if you hear birds in the background, roosters. You might see my cat or my dog in the video. I'm so sorry about that. I can't help and I can't stop, and I won't stop mother, nature and stuff. So just you probably can hear the birds. But anyway, let's continue. So George's oldest child was a girl. Her name is Kauilani Lucas TADEO. She was a first grader attending Keonepoke Elementary School. And now it was very common for Kauilani to come home from school, go inside the house and change her clothes, and then go outside and play. It was said that she would play in the yard, and then when she was playing outside on the street, that you could easily see her from the houses playing on the street. And whenever she wanted to go up, like around the block, she would ask her parents permission before doing so. On Thursday, September 27, 2001, little Kauilani comes home from school on the school bus around 2:45 p.m. So she comes home from school, she does her normal routine. She goes into the house, she changes her clothes, and then she goes outside to play in the yard. She plays in the yard for a little bit, and then she eventually makes her way out into the street. And now remember that George said that Kauilani could be seen from the houses playing in the street. So it wasn't a big deal. I mean, this is something she would do, pretty much every day. So around 4:00 p.m., George goes outside to call Kauilani to tell her to come inside the house to eat something. So he goes outside and he's looking for her in the yard. She's not there. He looks out into the street, she's not there. And so, of course, at this point, he's wondering where she is. So he asks the kids that he sees, hey, have you seen Kauilani? They say no. He goes and he asks the neighbors, have you seen my little girl? They say no. So at this point, he's starting to get worried. So he goes and asks his brother Ernesto, Ernesto lives right next door to them, and he asks if he's seen Kauilani, and Ernesto says no. So now, panic kind of sets in, and he's just wondering like, okay, what the heck? Like, where is she? This never happens. Where could she be? Unfortunately, from 4:00 to 6:00 p.m., they couldn't find Kauilani, and so George and his wife, at 6:00 p.m., they decide to call the police and report Kauilani missing. They show up to the TADEO's home, and now by this point, the entire neighborhood has gotten word that Kauilani is missing. You guys know how coconut wireless works in Hawaii, right? So anyways, the whole neighborhood is on high alert. They know that little Kauilani is missing. The police, they search and search, and around 8:30 p.m., they find Kauilani's body in an abandoned house on Opihi Street. And Opihi Street, the house that they found Kauilani's body in, was just 1 block away from the TADEO's home. Kauilani is no longer alive, and she has visible stab wounds to her face and to her body. Now they do an autopsy later on Kauilani, and it reveals that she died from a blunt force trauma to her head. Kauilani was SA'd, and so it looked as if she was brought to that abandoned house on Opihi Street. She was SA'd, she was stabbed, she was beaten, and then eventually the blunt force trauma to the head killed her. Kauilani TADEO was born on January 22nd, 1995. She was the oldest of the TADEO's 3 children. She loved school. She was so smart and would help her little brother return from school on the bus. Kauilani was learning to speak English, French, and the same Filipino dialect as her dad. She enjoyed singing and she loved dancing Tahitian. Now, of course, this devastated Kauilani's parents, as any parent naturally would be. George and his wife, they decide to sit the 2 boys down and then tell the 2 boys, what happened to their big sister. And they said they decided to do this because they didn't want the boys to hear it from someone else. They felt like, as being Kauilani's parents, they should be the ones to tell the boys. And I'm sure, I'm a parent myself, and I'm sure the boys were only 2 and 5 at the time. I'm sure they did not tell the horrific details. I'm sure they explained it to the boys in a way that could make as best sense as it could to a little 2-year-old and a little 5-year-old. George says he misses his daughter tremendously. He misses her smile, her laughter, everything about her. Kauilani is his firstborn, and of course a girl, daddy's girl. He had Kauilani and the 2 boys in 2001. George and his wife, they do end up having 3 more kids, so I believe they have a total of 5 boys. George said it was very difficult to talk about what happened to Kauilani. They said it was so difficult to talk about in the manner in which how she died, and he just couldn't understand, how could someone do that to such a sweet, innocent little girl. George and his wife, they talk about her every single day, and they wonder how life would be today with Kauilani if she was still alive. They wonder how she would be today, who she would become. So now, after Kauilani's death, the question becomes, who could do this, right? George said that this neighborhood was safe, and he felt that everybody in the neighborhood was safe. Everybody was good, nothing was bad. None of the neighborhood kids were bad. So who could do such a horrific thing to such a sweet, innocent little girl? And now, of course, it being a neighborhood that, everything's safe, everybody's good, everybody's close-knit. Kauilani's death, really shook this neighborhood to its core. Everybody was afraid to have their kids go play outside. George said that he didn't trust anybody anymore. He didn't trust his neighbors. He didn't trust his kids going outside to play. Everybody just, because the killer wasn't caught yet, everybody was just on high alert. There was a lot of tension. There was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of uncertainty. They didn't feel safe anymore. They went from being this very safe neighborhood where the kids outside playing and laughing and the neighbors talking and being friendly, to being closed off. Saturday, September 29, 2001, just 2 days after Kauilani's body was found, around 10:45 p.m., police end up arresting and charging 14-year-old Mark Davis Jr., and they charge him for the murder and SA of 6-year-old Kauilani. Mark Davis Jr. is charged with second-degree murder and 2 counts of SA. Now, there was a debate as to whether Mark Davis would be charged as a juvenile or if he was going to be charged as an adult because of his age and because of the nature of the crime. Now, because Davis is only 14 years old, naturally, family court has jurisdiction over the case. But family court can waive its jurisdiction, and then he could be tried as an adult. Now, if Davis is tried as an adult and if he's convicted, he faces a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. So if he's tried as a juvenile, the maximum incarceration he would get would be until he's 19 years old. So he's 14 at the time of his arrest, right? If he's found guilty in juvenile court, he would only have to spend 5 years. So he could be released in 5 years. Now, a lot of people in the community wanted Davis to be charged as an adult because of the horrific crime. Not just the TADEOs, but everybody, a lot of people in the neighborhood felt that because of the manner in which Kauilani was killed, that Davis should be held accountable for his actions. Before we go further, I do want to mention real quick as far as what does being charged with murder in the second degree mean, and what does being charged with 2 counts of SA mean. So of course I had to look it up, and it's great because I always want to learn. Being charged with murder in the second degree is basically intentionally or knowingly causing death to another person. And it's second degree because this person is not related to you. And then now being charged with first degree SA is basically when you engage in sexual that to another person, knowing that the person is under 14 years old. So I believe that the charges do fit the crime, right? Davis did kill Kauilani, and she and he were not related, so that's how the murder in the second degree charge. And then the 2 counts of SA because he did SA her and she was under 14 years old. The fact that Davis is only 14 years old, he's a minor, is just mind-blowing in and of itself, right? Like, I thought, and a lot of times, murders are committed by adults, right? When it comes to little children, it's very rare that you find a child being, murdered, and especially SA'd and murdered by another child. So not only is Davis a 14-year-old boy, I mean, he's just a little boy himself, but what makes this case even more complicated is that Davis is actually diagnosed as having and being mild to moderate mental retardation, having intermittent explosive disorder, and being diagnosed as antisocial personality disorder. And so I wanted to go a little bit further and look up what those 3 things mean. And so this is what I got. So let's talk about Davis's diagnosis for a minute and go over each one really quick. So mild to moderate mental retardation is actually now called intellectual disability, which is basically exactly that. Intellectual disability is established through a standardized measure of intelligence, in particular having an IQ score of below 70, and also by significant deficits in functional and adaptive skills. Adaptive skills involve the ability to carry out age-appropriate daily life activities. Okay, so yes, that does fit Davis, right? So that's basically saying that his IQ is below 70 and that he isn't able to carry out age-appropriate activities. He cannot distinguish, what is right and wrong from a 14-year-old, from an adult, from an infant. He cannot make that distinction. Okay, intermittent explosive disorder, or called IED, is a behavioral disorder by explosive outbursts of anger or violence, often to the point of rage, that is disproportionate. I can't even say that word. That is disproportionate to the situation at hand. It's not premeditated, and some individuals say they experience certain changes prior to having an outburst, or as some people call it, an episode. They feel changes such as having tension, mood changes, and energy changes. Okay, again, this fits Davis because anger, violence, in the manner in which he attacked and killed Kauilani fits that intermittent explosive disorder, right? He goes to the point of being so angry, the violence is just out of this world. I mean, he's filled with rage. Okay, so yes, he does have that. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but okay. And then the last one is antisocial personality disorder, which is a long-term pattern of disregard for or violation of the rights of others. also having a weak or non-existent conscience. Now, again, I cannot even stress how these three things fit Davis to the T. Having antisocial personality disorder. He does not have a conscience. What else does it say? Does not have a conscience and disregard or violation for others, right? Exactly what he did to Kauilani. He has no regard for another person. Oh my goodness. Okay, before we go even further, I do have something I want to say, and this is just my own personal opinion. You guys let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now, knowing that Davis is a 14-year-old minor, and knowing that he has been diagnosed with all these three things, and I don't know if this is diagnosed before this case and the trial came up or after, but regardless, I'm sure he's 14 years old. I'm sure the parents knew that their son was mentally retarded, or the PC term for it, but I'm sure he's 14 years old. They know. It's not like he was a little infant. Now my question then becomes, right, if you know your son has intermittent explosive disorder and he goes into these fits of rage and anger and he acts out in violence, I'm sure, actually 110% positively sure, even though I wasn't there, that this act of violence toward Kauilani was not the first act of violence that he did. I'm sure he's been violent and angry and has these outrageous fits of rage at home. I'm sure of it. So the fact that the parents were not in tune with the cues of Davis, because they said that a lot of these people that have this disorder, they experience changes in their bodies right before the episode happens. Tension, mood changes, energy changes. And I'm sure the parents, if you're in tune with your child, you would know these things. Anyways, that's just my little tangent. Let's keep on going. Davis does admit to raping and killing Kauilani. However, in 2005, he's acquitted of the rape and murder by reason of insanity. So Davis is actually sent to the Hawaii State Hospital in Kaneohe on Oahu. So Davis is sent to the Hawaii State Hospital in 2005. Not even being in there for a year, he gets angry with one of the nurses and actually escapes the hospital in 2005. He does end up being found, some hours later in a canal near Temple Valley Shopping Center in Honolulu. Now, because of his many outbursts and of his assaults, he's actually transferred to a facility in California in June of 2006. So he's sent to California, right? So the staff in California, they get him. Now, while he's in California, he assaults a lot of the staff, numerous assaults, and they just pretty much can't handle him. He also tries to escape that facility by trying to hotwire a car in the parking lot. So the facility in California actually ends up sending Davis back to Hawaii State Hospital because they're like, yeah, we can't handle him. We're not equipped for that. You guys can have him back. On May 29, 2009, Davis assaults a 62-year-old occupational therapist by repeatedly hitting her in the head with a padlock. In 2011, the state actually passes a law that says any patient that assaults a mental health worker will be charged as a felony. So he's actually arrested and charged with second-degree assault. Now, before I go further, I do have to say, again, this is my own personal opinion, that whole thing right there is interesting because you are charging a patient in a mental health hospital a felony for assaulting one of your staff. I mean, I get it. Nobody should be assaulted, definitely not. But it's a patient in a mental health hospital, and he's already been diagnosed with, those that disorder and all that behavioral disorders. So it just seems kind of like a not a catch-22. What's the term I'm trying to, it seems just, I don't know, like ass backwards. You're charging someone who is really not in control of of themselves, because they're in this mental health hospital, as a felony for doing something that they can't control. I don't know. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Am I explaining this right? Let me know what you guys think. Anyways, let's go on. Davis is awaiting trial for the assault on the 62-year-old occupational therapist. While he's waiting for his trial, he's actually housed at Old Triple C. While he's housed in Old Triple C, he's actually segregated from the main population. So he has his own cell. He's alone in his own cell. It's just him. And of course, it only has to be him because of his diagnosis, right? On Tuesday, May 7th, 2013, a worker is doing, the rounds, checking on the prisoners, and finds Davis dead in his cell. Now, Davis was alone in the cell, right? He's alone in the cell. So no foul play or suicide is suspected, but an autopsy examination was scheduled for Davis. I searched high and low, I could not find the results of that autopsy report. So if you guys are watching this video and if you can find it, please let me know. I'm so curious to know how Davis died. Yeah, if you guys can find that out, that would be great. Thank you. Arigato gozaimasu. So Kauilani's parents, George and Tumata TADEO, they did end up filing a lawsuit against Davis's parents, which are Mark Daniel Davis Sr. and Ellen Davis. They was awarded $2.7 million in the lawsuit, but unfortunately, Mark Davis Sr. and his wife Ellen, they dug out. They're nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen. I don't know present day 2001 if they were ever found, but I don't think that the TADEOs have collected any of that 2.7 million as of date. Again, if they have and I'm wrong, please let me know. Before I go, I do want to say that I did read somewhere that Davis's parents, like when the police went and searched their home, they found some violent pornographic stuff, and so they feel that Davis Jr. got all of this violence, part of it from watching violent pornographic films or whatever it was. But I don't know. I take that with a grain of salt. Yes and no, because again, Davis is diagnosed with that intermittent explosive disorder, so that's already naturally in him. But it kind of makes you wonder, like, where did he learn to do all that other stuff? It kind of trips me out, like what's actually going on in their brains. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let me know what you guys think about this case. Do you guys remember this case? I'm so curious as to your thoughts. So please feel free to leave me some comments or suggestions. Anyways, I will see you guys next week. Aloha. Bye. Bye. Bye.